why is there a statistic indicating that in the past 24 hours, not too long ago, that there was over 1,000 mentions in regard to VeChain? Well, it's because according to something called RR2 Capital, at least as of a couple days ago, that in the past 24 hours from that specific time, VeChain was actually ranked second in the world in terms of most popular layer ones by social activity, again, in the last 24 hours. So we just let that sink in for a second. According to this chart, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and even though I am not telling anyone to do anything, this is just my personal opinion and perspective, VeChain ranked second in the world, taking over Ethereum, Solana. We take a look in the case of even Ripple. What did it lose out to? Of course, Bitcoin, but that's understandable. But the fact that VeChain was ranked second, now people like to say, well, this is kind of a meaningless statistic. But the fact that this is even the reality for VeChain not too long ago, I think showcases that their recent sort of public and very vocal push in regard to AI has clearly been working in that sense, because now a lot more people are caring about this. Because let's take this into consideration, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. VeChain historically is known for its focus when it comes to supply chain management, which is oftentimes considered a little bit boring. But VeChain, we take a look at it, they're now really allegedly focused when it comes to AI, at least when it comes to in a very public and vocal way. Take a look at what they're trying to do with Agent Suite. Take a look at as well, when it comes to VeChain, in regard to Sunny Liu, the CEO, constantly talking about AI. All of this right here, now we're beginning to see kind of the ripple effects in regard to that. Not to mention as well, what do I think could have been another factor when it comes to this? I think it's the fact that the UFC, they constantly post, clips and stuff like that when it comes to their events. Now people like to say, well, how does that have anything to do with the popularity of VeChain? Let's take this into consideration. VeChain is a partner in regard to the UFC. When I watch the UFC, I typically see VeChain. I also see it when it comes in the case of PowerSlap, because VeChain has also worked alongside PowerSlap. Now, people like to tell me, well, why would VeChain being on there help? Well, let's think about this. Literally, the UFC did a deal with Paramount not too long ago that was worth around approximately $8 billion or something like that. And that's billion with a B, not with an M, not million, billion. So what does that mean? Individuals in the US, they no longer have to do pay-per-view. They go instead to Paramount, which is a pretty massive thing in terms of giving more exposure in regard to the UFC, which indirectly gives better exposure in regard to VeChain. It only kind of hypothetically makes sense to me, at least. So when I take a look at the statistic, I can't say I'm so surprised, but it's just pretty surprising nonetheless that something like VeChain was even ranked that high. Because VeChain is not even a top 10 project. We're talking about a project as of right now that's ranked 90th in the world. So it's top 100, very respectable, but it's nothing to brag home about, right? But it's very respectable still. And the fact that VeChain is currently ranked 90th in the world within this space in terms of market cap, I think showcases that what we're seeing as of right now when it comes to VeChain is not a situation in which is only specific to it. What do I mean by this? It's like, for instance, it's not like the whole space overall is popping off and then VeChain is just kind of left there and then not doing anything. That's not the case. It's not the only one that's down. So it doesn't make sense to say, oh, VeChain's doing so bad. Well, if it's doing so bad, why is it top 100 still? Does that mean every project that's ranked below it is cooked? Does it mean that every project that's ranked below it is really, really bad? Again, we're talking about a project that's ranked 90th in the world. A lot of projects out there in the top 300, 400, and 500, the fan base is still very impressive. A lot of people would say that they're not cooked. So how does it make sense if this one is suddenly cooked? Because it's ranked 90th? How does that make sense? And also VeChain, with what they've been doing lately in regard to Stargate and also the Hayabusa upgrade, it's just really impressive. So yeah, when people like to tell me, oh, no one really cares about this anymore. Well, really? They've been making a lot of strides. They've been making a lot of moves. Maybe it's not the most impressive or the most fantastic things of all time, but clearly what they're doing seems to be getting them somewhat of this degree of attention, I would say. Case in point, like this statistic that I mentioned earlier on in this video. Now, people like to say, well, if that's the case, then why didn't it move the price charts when it comes to VeChain? Well, because first of all, that's typically not how it works within this space. VeChain being ranked 90th in the world as of right now, it just can't randomly go on an independent rally of its own like that if, let's say, the overall market sentiment isn't doing the best. Just because it's not a microcap, it's a little bit more established, it just can't do that randomly. Now, this actually brings me to my next point as to how some people sometimes like to ask me why I don't believe in microcaps. Now, the reason why is because if we take a look at VeChain, we'll see that as of right now, in terms of market cap, it's over 10 times lower than December of 2024. Over 10 times. Isn't that kind of ridiculous? Being over 10 times lower. Now, it may sound like a bad thing, but here's the thing. If VeChain could just go back to there, or let's just say not even that far, let's just say it goes back to January of 2025. Again, we're around 10 times lower than that. If it could just go back there, that movement right there, again, we're around 10 times lower than that. If I'm trying to look for that movement through a microcap, for what? I just don't get it. There's many projects out there in the top 100, 200, and 300 that are down around like 10 times or around 5 times, around 15 times or whatever, lower than their peak in 2025 or 2024. So I don't need to be searching for that through a microcap. At least that's just my opinion. But besides that point, when I take a look at in the case of VeChain as of right now, the market cap is literally back at levels we once saw in 2020, which I get it. Again, may sound kind of alarming, but I don't mind low prices. I don't mind the dip. That's the thing. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but I'm just saying, I don't mind the dip. I like the project and I like the fundamentals. Now, I'm only hypothetically dollar cost averaging once every approximately 30 days. So it's not like I'm doing it every day or something like that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just doing it approximately once a month, but that's just personally what I'm doing. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But when it comes to VeChain, I like the fundamentals, and the fact that it was recently, not too long ago, rated as the number 2 most popular, later one by social activity in the last 24 hours as of a couple of days ago, according to RR2 Capital, that was a pretty impressive thing in my opinion. And I think clearly the advertisements, the talks about AI has been greatly helping VeChain as of right now in terms of the attention and notoriety, given a time like right now when the market isn't doing the best. It's not affecting the price charts, but again, I think it's impacting the awareness. So I think it does matter eventually if, let's say, the market were to take off, because if the market hypothetically were to take off, sometimes people do remember the projects that were pretty famous, or let's say the ones that were talked about when the market wasn't doing the best. So I don't view it as a bad thing. If anything, I think it's actually net positive that that was the case when it comes to VeChain. However, I hope you all have a very nice day. I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward. It's Malik the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.